7 o'clock, it's time to begin our council meeting. Let the roll call show that we are all present tonight. I'd ask you to say the pledge and flag with us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and welcome to our council meeting. Any changes or additions, Brad?
Yes, Your Honor, we do have one addition that is added to the consent agenda as the purchase of easement for parcel 400200789 for the 2026 Clearwater North Lindale area and Brentwood Circle Street and Utility Improvement Project. That RCA was laid in front of you at your chair. That was the last minute thing. And then there's 2 points of clarification. In consent item number 13, in the financial implications, there is the change. The money is to be deposited into the street replacement fund. In the RCA, it did have a different fund. Just want to point that out. And in 14, the appointment of seasonal position, the actual wage for that employee is $17.68 per hour.
Okay, that it?
That is it.
That first one you mentioned, where does that show up here then?
It does not show up on your agenda. This is a last minute addition based upon
Okay,
getting the mortgage company's signature on an easement that council gave us directive to pursue. We wanted to get that taken care of as soon as possible, so.
okay. Next agenda item is public comments. If anybody has anything you'd like to address us about that's not on the agenda, we would entertain those comments at this time. Seeing none, we'll press forward the consent agenda. The following items are considered non-controversial by staff and are recommended to be read and passed in one motion. Any council person, staff, citizen, or meeting attendee can request one or more items to be pulled from the consent agenda. Any item will be pulled and addressed immediately after the passage of the consent agenda. Otherwise, the following items will be passed in one motion. I want to approve the city council minutes from May 19th, 2026. Number 2, approve the payment of bills and finance report. Number 3, accept EDA minutes from May 19th, 2026. Number 4, appoint election judges in August 11th, 2026 primary election and November 3rd, 2026 general election. Number 5, approve the issuance of liquor licenses for the licensing period of July 1st, 2026 through June 30th, 2027.
Please pull number 5.
Pull that. Number 6, approve Jet Black for trail crack sealing and mastic repair, poly patching contracts. Number 7, approve releasing the lofts at Novotny Development Agreement. Number 8, approve the temporary material and storage area lease agreement with R.L. Larson Excavating, Inc. related to the 2026 Clearwater Road, North Lindale area, Brentwood Circle Utility Street Improvements Project, municipal project number 4068. Number 9, adopt resolution number 2026-041, adopting assessment for the 2026 Mill and Overlay Improvements Project, municipal project number 4426. Number 10, adopt resolution 2026-042 for accepting the bid from Anderson Brothers Construction Company in the amount of $1,215,289.64 for the 2026 Mill and Overlay Improvements Project, municipal project number 4426. Number 11, approve the Whitson proposal for professional engineering services for construction administration for the 2026 Mill and Overlay Improvements Project in a not to exceed amount of $145,000. Number 12, approve the Brown Intertech proposal for construction materials testing services in the estimated fee of $19,965 for the 2026 Mill and Overlay Improvements Project, municipal project number 4426. Number 13, adopt resolution number 2026-045, entering into midnight agreement number 20 as you 1062429 for temporary truck highway 210 detour. Number 14, approve appointment to the seasonal position of park attendant. And number 15, approve appointment to the seasonal position of streets and maintenance, utilities maintenance.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion by Lucio,
Second.
second by David. Any further?
Before the vote, just want to make sure that.
Oh, I'm sorry, we gotta go
It
back.
includes the additional item that we referenced at the beginning of the meeting, is also the approval of the purchase of the easement for the parcel related in the 2026. So we need an amendment and acceptance of that by the second.
We gotta go back to what number?
I second your amended motion.
What's that? Say it, all in favor? Oh, yeah.
Aye.
Oh, yeah, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All same side.
Item number 5, I'm going to abstain.
All upset.
This
Okay.
Aye.
motion to approve number 5.
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All same side. Motion carries. Sorry, I didn't ignore you there. Okay, other business, Brad?
We have a public hearing that's scheduled for proposed TIF district number 16. I believe Finance Director Messina will be presenting the case item, or the staff report.
Good evening, Your Honor, Council. Shane's here with Ellers, and he's actually going to go through the initial presentation for the proposed TIF district and related development agreement attached to it. Be available for questions. Looks like we're ready to go, Shane.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. Shane Milling again with Ellers. Nice to see you all again. So briefly tonight, we'll go through a high-level project overview, following up on what we did back in April here. Talk about TIF plans and that process. Touch briefly on the financial review that we did. Again, went over back in April. Review the key terms of the development agreement, review the April 7 action, and then talk about recommendations. So again, this is an 80-unit mixed income multifamily development. Includes assisted living and memory care units. It's eligible to be a housing TIF district because of the income restrictions that would be in place via the development agreement and restrictive covenants. The street infrastructure would be built by the existing landowner out there, where this developer would purchase that land, and the agreement between them builds the roads and utilities and things that serve the site. The unit mix is as shown in the table there on the bottom right. So generally, as TIF plans go, they're a statutory document that sets forth the objectives of the project. Has a map in there, identifies where it is and where you can spend TIF money. It identifies a maximum budget, and if you look at that TIF plan closely, you'll see that the numbers in there are inflated intentionally to give you all more flexibility over time. They're not the numbers that you commit to in the development agreement. Those are different numbers. And again, we do that intentionally to make sure that there's room with inflation and lower interest rates, so that you guys have maximum flexibility with the TIF funds. It doesn't commit you to spending any of it. The only thing that you're need to do tonight is A, to approve the TIF plan. If you choose to do so, then commit the funds to the development and the developer via the TIF/development agreement. So those are the two things. The TIF plan is a planning document that sets these maximum budgets. So the process requires that when we handle this for you, notify the county and the schools that they don't have a vote on this type of TIF district. There are some discrete situations in the statute where city or counties and schools do get a say in whether TIF districts are created or not, but this type of district is not proposed. So you all are in the driver's seat to establish this district. They do get notified of the fiscal impacts of the project, how much tax base is being committed to the district, and so on. Of course, the statute requires a public hearing, which you all are holding tonight. And then later, the district will be certified after the TIF notice paid off, and or when you close the district later, or when time's And specifically for this TIF district and for called Trident here in Baxter. So you've got a housing TIF district. Again, it meets the affordability income limits. Doesn't require school district approval. You can pay for certain eligible costs for up to 26 years. It's, you know, the statute states it's 25 years after the receipt of first increment, which is 26 years. They can just say 26 years easier, but they don't do that. And currently we're looking at, with the TIF agreement, 20 years being committed in that agreement, or up to 20 years, it could be after. And then again, the plan here anticipates a pay-as-you-go note. That's a term that gets used a lot. It's not a statutory term, but a lot of people know what that means, but some don't. And so fundamentally what that means is you're not committing any other funds to the project. You're not committing any general funds or pledging any cash that you have or any other grants or anything like that. You're only paying as you go. If TIF is generated by the project, you are paying through that development agreement and the TIF note to the developer for up to 20 years and up to the principal amounts that we'll get to in a second. So you're not risking anything else, just paying as you go. It includes a 10% allowance for city administrative costs, and the base value of that project will continue to be part of your tax capacity, your tax base, as it was before. So you're not losing that existing tax base that you have already, albeit relatively limited. And then, you know, there's a finding in the TIF plan that says that this project would not occur but for the TIF assistance. And that's the review process that we all went through and we summarized back in April. And you know, that's what you have us for at Ellers, is to make sure that the project isn't getting more money than it needs to move forward. And I can say that for sure. Again, outlining the process, the slide we showed back in April as well, over another click along the line. But just to go over it at a high level, we've got the TIF application, we do financial modeling, enter into negotiations, come to agreeable terms at a high level, and then over the past period of time leading up to today, we're working on the TIF agreement and doing the TIF plan, 45 to 60 days to do that TIF plan process, and the TIF agreement, which would be considered for approval substantially in the form included in the packet, is still being worked on today. The finer the finer details of that are still being worked out, but all the business terms are set as we sit here today. Then you've got construction, and then we issued a TIF note after that's done, and then we do have a stabilization look back on IRR, which is the internal rate of returns measure of profitability for the development. Once we know what the costs are, we know what the revenues are, operating expenses, property taxes, all that stuff gets baked into this IRR calculation, which is a bit of math that takes a fair bit of time to iron out, and there's always a small provision in the development agreement that takes 10% of the time to work through among 74 other pages of the document. So again, TIF assistance is a gap filler. You can't move markets with TIF, but you can nudge them along, and that's exactly what we're doing here. And so this recommendation from the April meeting is for the TIF note to be $1.1 million in present value, financed at 6%, derived from 90% of the TIF generated from the project above the base value, up to 20 years. Again, it's a pay-as-you-go. There are other things that, non-monetary things, if you will. Land use developers restricted from seeking the 41 tax classification for the project, which would lower the property taxes and again change the TIF amount. So we restrict that. We had a long conversation about that early on in the project. And then the look back that I mentioned, it's an internal rate of return look back at stabilization with a 16% threshold. Doing that, taking my finger off of it. And the TIF development agreement follows this recommendation. Those are the key points in the TIF agreement. I'm happy to have Jeremy's deep in the TIF agreement. The developers here tonight, and we've all been supply specking the development agreement. So if there's any questions on any of that, we have to go through any amount of detail that you'd like tonight. And so the recommendation for tonight is to hold a hearing and approve the TIF plan, and then approve the same resolution approves the TIF plan and the TIF development agreement. And at the end, we would approve that agreement substantially in form that's attached in the packet. And with that, I'm happy to answer questions.
Council, any questions of you? Seeing that, we will open the public hearing at 7:15. Anybody here to address this subject?
Mayor, members of council. Roger Fink with Trident Development, the applicant for the TIF application. Thank you for considering our TIF tonight. We're really excited about bringing Timber Ridge of Baxter assisted living to the community. I think it's going to be a great project and a great amenity and asset for the city of Baxter and its residents. I want to thank Shane and Jeremy for working so hard on the development agreement. We just received it late on Friday, so we've had to hustle to get through it. We're not completely through it yet. Legal counsel hasn't had an opportunity to review it in that depth, but Shane and I spent a bit of time on the phone this afternoon. I think that we have agreed that there will be a minimum assessment agreement. We will have a look-back agreement, details to be ironed out, but we're very close on that. And we're working on the form in which we certify back to the city as to qualified residents with that income bracket. So we're looking at what does that look like. We didn't like what was presented, so we're coming up with another idea that the city should find acceptable. I think those were my main comments. Just to mention, this project is about a $24 million investment coming to town, and we truly appreciate the city's contribution and participation in the financial assistance. So I'm happy to stand here and answer any questions if you have anything.
Also, any questions of him?
Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing at 7:18. Bring it back to the council. What's needed, Brad?
You want to summarize?
Somebody.
Your Honor and Council, there's two resolutions included in your packet for approval. First one is to approve the TIF district and the TIF plan that's associated with it, along with the proposed development agreement in its current form. As it's been mentioned, there's some minor changes that need to be made. We did talk those through with Jenny Bolton, our municipal finance attorney, today, and she doesn't believe that those are a change in the business deal, as Mr. Fink has alluded to, just some minor adjustments that we need to make with the tenant reporting form. Yeah, so it's works with both parties as well as some minor terms, I guess, in this stabilization and so forth in the actual look-back provision. But as you're aware, the look-back provision allows us to, once the project's complete or near complete, based on the definitions that are described in there, determine the actual amount of TIF that's actually needed in the TIF note prior to proceeding with the TIF note. So the first resolution would be to, as I mentioned, approve the TIF district and TIF plan as well as the associated development agreement. And the second one is intergovernmental. We adopt these with all of our TIF districts, and it basically allows the city to reimburse itself for any costs that are covered initially by what the developers pay through the deposit and some of the initial setup with the administration costs. So the time that staff spends on reporting the TIF districts, any other costs that are associated with that before the tax increments are being generated. As you know, that there's a little bit of a delay in when the valuation comes online with the county and the taxes, and then what we converted to the tax increment in that case, a little bit of a delay in that. So that allows us under statute to reimburse for those costs, because we can reimburse ourselves for up to 10% of the costs related to the district.
Any questions of Jeremy on the first issue there? Founding the TIF.
I guess I might bring up just a couple of things, since I know that there tends to be questions after the fact and whatnot when it comes to kind of what the public understands of these. I just want to maybe confirm with you in more plain language than some of our presentations. What I'm seeing here is we have TIF, which is we're foregoing taxes that currently are not being collected because there's nothing on this land in order to encourage the development that wouldn't happen if we didn't do this.
That's a correct way of saying it. So look at the fact that there's a before tax base, that's the value of basically the land right now, and there's the increase that results from when the construction occurs, so that increase in valuation is the tax increment portion of that. That would be the portion that we would be using to rebate back to the developer, for lack of a better word, 90% up to the TIF note that's being issued. The TIF note's being issued to pay for eligible development-related costs associated with it. So typically you see that as parking lots, something underground work. It's a little bit more extensive when it comes to housing, the type of things, but there's a list of things that can be reimbursed with that. We would issue a TIF note for that. Our obligation to pay that is only from tax income that's generated during that 20-year, up to that 20-year period. So as Shane alluded to, there's no other general obligation to the city. We're not obligated to pay anything that doesn't materialize beyond that, or the taxes coming over.
Sure. And so to take that further, what I saw is we have basically a bracket around this investment, if you want to call it that, that if the developer makes too much money, the TIF ends. If the development doesn't generate enough additional value, we don't have to pay what wasn't generated. Is that
Right,
right?
we only pay up to the 90% of the increment over that maximum of 20 years, up to the $1.1 million that the TIF notes being established, that plus interest. That's exactly right.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for the plain English.
Trying.
Anything else? For a motion then to approve the
I'll move approval.
Second.
motion by Tabit, second by Lissu. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The second issue,
And then the second one would be the interfund loan that would just allow ourselves to reimburse ourselves for city costs that are associated with the TIF district until the TIF is generated, pay those costs.
Motion to approve. Second.
motion by Cross, second by Mr. Sundberg. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All you need?
That's all.
All right. We already closed the hearing. Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much for your help. Sure.
Look forward to see progress there. You will. Thanks, everybody. Move to council comments.
What I'm about to say probably falls under the Malcolm, Minnesota divide that we're all familiar with, but I wanted to make it known publicly tonight that I won't be seeking a third term. I just think it's fair to give the city enough notice of anyone who might be interested in running for the seat, and I didn't want to get emotional because you're still stuck with me for 6 months, but it's been an experience that I'm so grateful for. So many learning opportunities and reading about some of the other situations in other cities. I think anyone would be really hard pressed to work with a group that's as quality as what this one is. So thank you. Not saying goodbye yet, just the long Minnesota goodbye.
Zach?
I had some follow-ups from our last, the assessment hearing we just went through, and I wanted to see about setting up a conversation here in the very short term to kind of similarly to what I just did in asking the finance director some questions. I'd like to see if we can't work with Mr. Bitter to create some educational opportunities before we get to the crunch time of an assessment hearing. One theme I've noticed is it seems when we get the questions and the confusion from the public at the very end of those assessment processes, the questions are often kind of the same theme. The confusions are things that we can maybe put out answers to ahead of time. So I guess my proposal would be to have a work session or a conversation where we can talk about some of the questions that come up and ask our consulting engineer and our city engineer to work together on like an educational presentation that we could offer way before we get down to the you have to put in your objection now or forever hold your peace point. So just as a couple of examples of questions that I've already thought, you know, we can answer this ahead of time is, you know, people will come to these assessment hearings and ask, well, what are my property taxes for if I'm gonna be assessed for this anyway? Why do I have to pay a second assessment for an empty lot? Why are we doing assessments at all when we could just have this paid for in other ways? And then, you know, the answers to those questions can kind of help explain the fact that we've talked about not doing assessments at all, and maybe explaining the financial analysis, things like that, at least a big kind of general educational level. And like I said, I briefly talked to Mr. Bitter about it. I don't know if you had anything you wanted to add that.
No, well, kind of, if something, you know, we've gone through these a few times, especially with myself, so if you're hearing questions over and over again, try to just think of those questions that you continuously hear, and we can try to get those answered, and we can certainly, we're happy to help with that.
So with that, I would just encourage us to move forward with something where we can kind of head off maybe some of the more difficult conversations ahead of that last hearing, if council would be open to that.
So you're thinking of this presentation going out with a notification as opposed to waiting till we come in here?
Definitely, as opposed to waiting. I think it would be, depending on the format of what the final piece comes out as. Yeah, it could be mailed out ahead of time. It could be a part of a neighborhood meeting with a slideshow. Whatever might make the most sense to make sure that the information's out there and people have a chance to think about it.
Okay.
That's all. Thank you.
Patrick?
I'm not gonna continue on with that one because I also had notes along that same. I recall when we purchased our house back in 2004, it's quite a while ago now, but there was a known map of future city projects, and even with the giant asterisks, all dates and ranges are subject to change. And that was, as far as I could tell, it was publicly known and available out there, because we were well aware that the map existed when, because we bought our house and then 2 years later sewer and water came through and it was paved. We were excited about the project, but we knew ahead of time, and we knew ballpark costs too, or at least historical costs. So that type of information was helpful for us, because it just seemed like it was more, the information was more readily available. I kind of happened to do a little digging, and on our website in the map section, there's a roadway improvement project that's 2017 to 2019. So I think at minimum, maybe some updating, something like that to give people just a heads up. And also with the giant asterisk saying that all things have changed. And it, like, you know, because that's a big thing that people ask is they're surprised about the cost. Well, when we were buying a house in 2004, we kind of had an idea already about how much it would cost. So I think that's just, even just a map of showing where the potential projects are coming down the line, that kind of gets people talking, and gets that conversation started. So,
That's important information for voters to have too, then,
yeah.
showing them.
I mean, my in-laws down in your neighborhood, those projects were pushed back because they were supposed to plan in 2009 or something like that. Well, obviously got pushed back a number of years, but at least they had a few years, you know, kind of notice for the way it's planned. So I think that would be helpful. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Mark?
No comments tonight.
I don't think everything's been said here. City Administrator?
Nothing to report, Your Honor.
City Attorney, anything?
Nothing.
Anything from the attorney? Nothing? Okay, look for a motion to adjourn, then I guess.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?